When you beat Manchester City, you feel like your team has jumped a few levels in the space of those 90 minutes. Manchester United and Tottenham both beat City at the Etihad Stadium in the span of a few weeks, and that could have easily colored their judgment as to how their team is placed. I mean, you go toe to toe with City and you win. It means that you're in good stead, right? Wrong. That is how crazy this season has been, and that is because City have been so bad in this 12 game run. Beating them has not been a sign of good form, especially if you're not picking up wins in and around that fixture. Now, what I mean by that is in past seasons, if your team is doing well, say in the last 5 games, you have 4 wins and a loss, and that loss was to Man City, you take that. But this season, it is the opposite. For Spurs and Manchester United under Ruben Amorim, it has been terrible results around a top performance against Manchester City. I mean, Spurs put 4 past Manchester City at the Etihad, where City were 55 games unbeaten up until then. It was a shock to the system. 4-0. That does not happen to Pep at home. But a month has passed since then, and Spurs have won just 1 game in the league against bottom of the league Southampton, and now have lost 3 games in a row at home. 2-1 to Ipswich, 4-3 to Chelsea, and now 6-3 to Liverpool. They are shipping goals left, right, and centre. To say it is a concerning time for Ange is a gross understatement. Amidst all the chaos, they have still managed to reach the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup, where they will meet Liverpool in 2 legs. Look, I understand his situation with Vicario, Romero and Van de Ven missing. That high line is dependent on the athleticism of the 3 players mentioned, and when they do play, Spurs still ship a lot of goals under Ange. But it is also on him, I feel, for rushing the 2 centre backs against Chelsea, and both of them breaking down well before the 90 minutes. It was a desperate move because Ange was desperate at that time. It was a time where he could not afford Chelsea to just rock up and absolutely hammer them at their own stadium. The scoreline didn't do the game any justice, as informed Chelsea were comfortably the better side. Ange has made the point abundantly clear that despite the personnel, he wants his team to continue playing the same way. Keeper missing, centre backs injured, doesn't matter. It is an identity, it's cultures and values, and it is admirable to some level to see someone sticking to their principles when chaos around you might dictate you to change your ways. But when you see Liverpool's front line and midfield just running through their high line with huge gaps in midfield, their third choice centre-back Dragusin and makeshift centre-back Archie Gray struggling to cope, you almost feel sorry for them. You see Fraser Foster looking to play out the back with his feet, and everybody but the manager, who would want the team to just completely ignore him in the build-up altogether and just boot it forward or clip it towards the touchline away from goal. But no, he is encouraged to play out the back. Liverpool had 6 and could have had more. The game was over at half-time, and it was truly finished 15 minutes into the second half, where it was 5-1, and the scoreline was glossed over a little bit, just like the Chelsea game. But this is a manager willing to die by his philosophy. If I were to draw a parallel in a similar vein, something transpired at Southampton. On a smaller scale, it was where Russell Martin and Southampton, who were promoted to the Premier League after a long hiatus, played football that was easy on the eye, but more often than not, it was suicidal football. He did not adapt, which is why Southampton are rock bottom and had 5 points in 16 games before they decided enough is enough. it was not sustainable for Southampton, sure. But what about for Spurs, a team with the capacity to spend but do not really make that extra push in terms of quality recruitment? They are 11th in the league, and in terms of perspective, it is 5 points behind 5th place Bournemouth. But if they are to look down, and they should, it is 6 points ahead of 15th place Everton and just 1 ahead of Manchester United in 13th. Which brings us nicely to Manchester United. Ruben Amorim took charge of his first game this time last month. It was a draw against Ipswich where they should have lost. Onana bailed them out with 2 brilliant saves. I can remember the one of Liam Delap that was truly world class. They were 13th then and they are 13th still. 22 points from 17 games, 7 defeats and -1 goal difference. It's not good. In that month, Amorim has been in the league. He's starting to lose his hair already. He went from top of the league, enjoying the sun in Portugal, to the cold, harsh Manchester winter. And in the 6 league games, he has just 6 points, beating Everton at home and Manchester City away. United were 3 minutes away from losing the derby, and a combination of self-implosion from Man City and Amad Diallo gave United what felt like a statement win. And it was, on paper though. See, history will show that Amorim got the better of Pep in the last 2 months twice, once with Sporting and then Manchester United. But this City team in this period especially are totally unrecognizable. On Saturday, Unai Emery and Aston Villa took Pep and Man City to school. The result was 2-1, but it was a game where Villa dominated and deserved the win. They have leapfrogged Man City to 6th in the league as well. Morgan Rogers and John Duran, by the way, incredible players, outstanding scouting by Villa. I'm sure they'll have other teams sniffing around for these 2 players. But as for United, it is back-to-back league games at home where they have conceded 3 goals in defeat, 4 in midweek in the Carabao Cup, and it's back-to-back years where little old Bournemouth rock up to Old Trafford with the very impressive Andoni Iraola at the helm and absolutely wipe the floor with Manchester United. 3-0 last season and 3 again yesterday. What a coach Iraola is. Bournemouth will be very lucky if his head is not turned next season by quote-unquote a bigger club. But what he is doing with Bournemouth is simply incredible. That centre-back pairing of Huijsen and Zabarni is just class. I mean, 19 and 22-year-old respectively. Every time I've seen those 2 play, top performances. They have kept a clean sheet against Spurs and United, with Huijsen, the centre-back, scoring in both these games. But these 2 as a pair defensively, excellent. The scouts across Europe will be eyeing these 2 for sure. Just the 4 goals conceded in the last 5 games for Bournemouth, and it's not just their defensive solidity. They play excellent front foot football, team football, and that comes from hours and hours on the training ground, aided by good players and an outstanding coach at the helm. Major props to Bournemouth's sporting department on the recruitment and snapping up Iraola from the obscurities of Rayo Vallecano in Spain. But for United, the problems deepen and the cracks just widen. Amorim has chopped and changed a lot in the games that he has coached as he looks to find solutions in multiple problems. The formation is clear. There's no ambiguity there. The players now will have to adapt to the manager, which hasn't been the case at United. What he cannot do is put square pegs in round holes. This is a system that needs technicians and specialists. Any sort of misprofiling done in terms of players could do a lot of harm. For example, does Kobbie Mainoo have the athleticism or the passing range to accompany Ugarte in the pivot, who is a pure destroyer and a carrier? Is he more suited to one of the number 10s, for example, where he can dribble, link up in tight spaces, and even find that odd goal? The same goes with Joshua Zirkzee. He is 6'4", yes, but he is not a centre forward. Halfway through the season, it looks like another player that is more suited to play as that inside forward. And then you come to the Bruno Fernandes problem, whereby he is not an 8. He does not have the positional discipline to play in the 8, and neither is he an inside forward. So he is being shoehorned into the team as captain, and he is not a specialist in either position. Big calls need to be made by Amram, as he's got Wolves away and then Newcastle, Liverpool, and then Arsenal in the FA Cup. Tough times ahead for them. But it's Liverpool who are now crowned Christmas champions, with Chelsea and Arsenal chasing them. But Arsenal were dealt a massive blow during their 5-1 win over Crystal Palace. Bukayo Saka came off holding the back of his thigh halfway through the first half, and since then it has been confirmed that a hamstring injury will sideline Saka for at least 6 to 8 weeks. It could be truly title derailing, as Arsenal are trying to keep pace with Liverpool with a gap that can potentially extend to 9 points. I had a video a couple of weeks back titled Bukayo Saka Needs Help, and it was not just in terms of his output, but just the sheer number of minutes he's had to shoulder under Mikel Arteta. They do not have any sort of competition or cover, and you often see Saka playing 90 minutes in games where he should be rested. Look, injuries can happen at any given time. You can't foresee some of them. But when Saka has logged in 23,000 minutes of football at the age of 23, and you keep playing him week in, week out with no rest, muscle injuries are bound to happen. And for Saka, it's a hamstring tear from what I read, and it truly is damaging. Look, for context, Eden Hazard had 26,000 minutes before the age of 24, the most in football history, alongside Cristiano Ronaldo. It is an outrageous amount of football. And then you see two spectrums of the longevity aspect with these two names. Ronaldo still active at 38, while Hazard retired at 31. But for Arsenal now, they will have to try and cope. Their rest of the attack will have nowhere to hide now in terms of trying to finding solutions. They have often deferred to Saka as their problem solver, but now will have to come up with solutions themselves.